Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can. And I continue with Tyranny Blind.
What do we have here?
That's cute. That's cute. They're little beastmen cubs roaring at me and asking if I'm impressed. The heavy odor of musk and urine loiter around those matted straw nests, making their proximity to the sleeping tents to the west all the more surprising. The ripping wall of muscle and fur sniffs the air at your approach.
Show some respect, whelp.
Kills in Shadow rears up at the beast. Unmoved by Kills in Shadow displays of aggression, the beast stares at you expectantly. What's the problem?
This beast does not lower haunches in our presence. Kills in Shadow should teach it proper etiquette.
Apologies. Did not intend offense, but I will apologize for nothing. A wicked scowl scratches across Kills in Shadow's face, but she says nothing. Leave that one alone.
Leave it alone? But fine. We'll obey this once.
The beast says nothing, but eyes Kills in Shadow in warily as it goes. Glaring at the beast with a low growl, Kills in Shadow begins to lurch forward, but thinks better of it. With a quiet sigh, she shakes her head. Tread carefully. We will not rescue if human falls into water. Good day to you, Fatebinder. Let me the first to tell you that all of my licenses are in order, signed and sealed this very year. He swipes a layer of perspiration from his brow and chuckles nervously. No reason at all to ransack my cart or confiscate my goods. I trade in whatever I can get my hands on these days. Care to have a look? What can you tell me of the bastard's wound? What's there to say? Living in the depths of the old walls ain't exactly a wise man's dream, but neither is living under the constant threat of raiders. At least down here my back gets watched by the beasts. Jaspos seems to have a pretty good handle of how things should be done. He says he's certainly more a people's person than Wagstaff, but that doesn't mean the Tidecaster is a bad person or nothing. I can't exactly stay in touch with the supply lines down here, but at least I have customers with nowhere else to go. What do you have? Potions? Waking Death, that's a remarkable sigil of strength. That's very expensive. Do I have stuff to sell? Kind of. I'll keep this. I can sell this. 100. I will keep one of the better 100 weapons for Barrick, maybe. 200, 200, Iron War Mace, quality superior. 200. Great Spear. I can sell most heavy armor because Barrick can't get out of his own armor anyway. And he seems to be the only one that actually wears heavy armor. I will buy this for later. I don't have enough lore yet, but I will soon. If you're a wall smart, shop wall smart. That's what I always say. He clears his throat. Also, this is wall smart. Welcome. Okay, that's a very clear and rather blatant reference to Walmart, but it makes a certain amount of sense, I guess, because it is set in the old walls, so I will allow it. I'm working on cries to drive custom. What do you think? Sounds good. You've almost got it. Thank you kindly, friend. And they say Fatebinders don't have a sense of humor. I stocked the staple foods and potions you would expect from an Azure merchant at Haven Value, in all the comfort of the old walls. What can you tell me about the wound? It's fantastic, so long as the beasts keep the bane at bay. Wagstaff lads and lasses have been making short work of them too, and he keeps the water from, well, let's just say you'll want the water from him, or Jaspos, I suppose. Nothing against him, but he's got a bit of the old northern blowhard to him. No offense to yourself, of course. Your blow seems entirely soft. That's not really better, is it? I'll shut up now. What do you have? As you wish. We're the cheapest in the wound. What? Imperator's Old Walls Regalia. It says light armor nude. So are those pants? A popular legend in the tiers ridicules Imperator Tesnax, a likely mythic northern warlord who swore the invisible armor he purchased from the adventurous raider of the Old Walls could protect him from any and all harm. Those who suggested he has been swindled were publicly fed to sharks. While Tesnax may have never existed, this armor certainly does. Probably. So where's Wagstaff?
Curious.
Humans are wise to follow while beasts lead the hunt. Very wise.
Is this Wagstaff's home, by any chance? One of Kairos's wandering judges comes to the wound. It isn't. So where's Wagstaff then? He was supposed to be by some waterfalls? That's what they said, at least. Welcome to our little refuge, Fatebinder. You here to help us keep the wound clear of bane? Insipid moniker picks at a splotch of dried blood over her greaves. She wears the patchwork armor of a scarlet fury. Are the banes constantly showing up like that? Welcome to our headache. The way that the bane come and go, you would think the teleporters were beaded curtains. Luckily for us, the beasts seem to love killing Bane. They'll put in more hours on sentry duty than any human, and I welcome the extra sleep. What's through the portal? That goes deeper into the untamed old walls. We sent patrols out to sharpen the beast's claws and lighten the number of bane, but we haven't exactly mapped it. How did you get your name? Funny story to that, she frowns. There's a piece of advice they should give to every new chorus conscript, but don't. Oh, you poor pathetic fool. You actually asked the voices for a nickname. You know the Archon's an artist of suffering, don't you? I could have been shits for days or bleeding sores if I waited long enough. Even hindsight would be more appropriate. And what do you do here exactly? Whatever Wagstaff wants. Guess you could call me an apprentice. I can read, which is more than most can say. It's more subtle than the red work of the chorus, but I don't mind the change of pace. So the blue is to honor Wagstaff. Exactly. Fucker iced half my gang with his spells, so now I fight for him. Those are the rules. In a twisted way, I think the voices would approve. Not that his approval is any safer than his wrath. I'll be going now. But where is Wagstaff?
Sorry, I can't.
Fatebinder, the woman before the card greets you evenly. She wears her graying hair pulled back high over her fold leathers, her narrow eyes emphasizing the dirty creases above her cheeks. There's not a lot of trade in the wound, and little of that in magical goods. If you need scribbles or mixtures gleaned from our forays into the old walls, I'm the one to ask. What can you tell me of the wound? Not a bad little place to carve out a bit of life. Better than the war topside anyway. Wagstaff started things, and he's been a capable hand on the rudder, if that makes sense. Real father-like, if he's got a stake, as if he's got a stake in it. That overpuffed bricklayer Jaspos, on the other hand, he's just like every other shit come south from the conquest, just looking for a way to bend the tears over and ram his poker up. She clears her throat. Got a bit away from myself there. What do you have on offer? Cerulean scales. Additional shock damage. Could have been cool for like what's her name? Ebb? Do I know it? I don't, so I'm buying this. It's pretty costly, but
right.
Fatebinder, the former nobleman, hops on his good leg to face you. How was Rostrum Manor destroyed? I suppose my father's optimism was to blame. Before the Overlord's forces even set foot in the bastard tier, my father invited the tiersmen of all persuasion into the walls to resist Kairos. Didn't matter who you were. Once the tier fell, Cairn arrived to make an example of my family. That monster sundered the whole damned mountain along with my home. My family was killed in the very walls meant to protect them. I was the luckiest, merely pinned by a stone column I clutched as the floor heaved from Cairn's onslaught. His maimed arm quivers from some sort of unknown exhaustion. Eventually a single finger extends downward and points at his right leg, heavily scarred and bent at an unnatural angle. My fighting days are done, Fatebinder, even if I hate the Overlord more than ever. Tell me about yourself and Rostrum House. I think you are well acquainted with the manor and its ground at this point. My father's legacy and my inheritance reduced to rubble and ash. They called it the Shattered Bastion. He runs his fingers across his eyes, tracing the darkest circles that ring them. Rostrum House is but a memory now. Prior to Kairos' arrival, we were a successful merchant family with routes that extend from Azure's capital to Arden's coasts. My father never married, but it didn't stop him from asserting control over these lands. Tiersman's laws be damned. I'm all that remains of his 3 heirs. That's highly unusual for your father to claim land ownership. He didn't cleave to tradition. I'm sure that passing women the land and stuffing men on board the ships made sense when our ancestors needed cleaner lines of inheritance. Men drown, so women wear the crown, as they say. Okay, kudos for that. To be honest, I myself have a very dim view of tradition. I think tradition in itself is actually pointless, or sometimes even worse than that, because you should never be doing things just because they are tradition, just because they were quote-unquote always done. You should, at every point in history, you should question what was quote-unquote always done to ascertain whether it's actually a good idea to continue doing that thing. Because without it, it leads into stagnation, and it leads into the lack of progress, which is exactly what is happening here. They have had this stupid idea for a matriarchy, centuries ago, and they never stopped to actually question it, which is apparently his father did. So good for him on that. My father never set foot in water. Goes to show you how you can overcome any eccentricity if your coffers are full of rings. They speak more persuasively than you or I ever could. But what do you do here personally? Shouldn't you be leading the settlement? Is this a face worthy of leadership? He snorts, running his hands through his unruly hair. No, I lack my father's ambition. I've seen where it leads. Besides, I have little to offer these folks beyond the memory of more optimistic days. He rubs the thick scar running down his arm. My father would be enraged if he saw me today, pacing the mushroom beds or leading swine to slaughter. This life might not be worth much, but it's something at least.
Can't do that.
Is Wagstaff
here?
here?
Sounds calmer here, and yet as deep as the sea.
There is. Arranged at angles that recall the sigil of Gravelight, these crystals shimmer with the collected glow of what little radiance from the Teratus grave filters into those depths. It's a shame I didn't bring Ebb. I kind of half want to go out and do that, but I will maybe sometime later, because I imagine whatever quest they have for me, it might send me outwards, right? A bearded, weathered figure stands by the pool's edge, eyes closed in concentration. His face, uncharitably weathered from the years of sun and wind, is a collection of deep, intertwining creases weathered by a brittle-looking grey mane. No, wreathed by a brittle-looking grey mane. One disapproving eye snaps open as you approach. I hear you have already spoken with our other advocate, Jaspos, regarding the legality of this place. I wish you had spoken with me first, but if Jaspos convinced you to show us mercy, then perhaps I owe him a day without denigrating comments. Half a day, maybe. Thank you, Fatebinder. I knew the day would come when we would be discovered, and I imagined a much bloodier scenario. In this regard, I am happy to be made a fool. Life here in the wound isn't easy, and we have always assumed outsiders will bring us death, not help. Your leniency is the sort of surprise we needed in those difficult times. Although I never would have guessed this, your arrival might be a sign of good things to come. These people here seem guilty of little more than trying to survive. I am happy to be of service. If I might take you literally for a second, let's say I was in need of someone who can come and go from this refuge and handle some matters for me. Would you be willing? It's hard for me to leave things unattended, and if I were to perish, depends on what you have in mind. There's an old rival of mine still out there, a sage named Phoebe. He twists the rope at the ends of his belt, grimacing. Yes, we were rivals from... Yes, we're from rival schools. No, this isn't a case of unsettled score. I'd live and let live, but she poses an actual threat to the wound. She had knowledge of my plans to journey north to trace Kern's path in the mountains, which may expose us. She could bring a slew of homeless sages here, probably followed by a gaggle of spies. It's not worth the risk, she needs to die. His tone is a matter of fact, almost casual. The problem is finding her. We had a mutual contact, Melita, who used to spend time in Letian's Crossing. If the two are still in touch, she would be able to point you in the right direction. All of Bastard's wound would be in your debt, and most of all me. Can I trust you? Can I trust in your help? Is this sage really such a threat? She's a risk to everyone living here. The woman hates me. Having dealings with her in the past was a mistake, and I'll be damned if I let that error ruin all that we have built here. Now that the school is in ruins, she'll view my accomplishments here as research to be appropriated, and while she's at it, she'll engineer a catastrophe for the wound just to spite me. So yes, Fatebinder, I'm sure. How do you know her? Over a decade ago, the School of Tides and the School of Ink and Quill tried yet again to discuss peace. She represented her school, and I was forced to represent our end of the fruitless meditation. It was all a farce to get to know a few of us, figure out who should be spied upon. Several span later, some of my work was discovered by the sages. Fucking word thieves, every last one of them. I'm not going to kill someone before they've actually done something wrong. I understand the sentiment, but whether you believe it or not, this woman is a threat and will gladly bring attention to our existence if it serves her purpose. Moreover, she's likely to expose us even without trying. She could wind up consumed by the voices of Nerat or followed here. I found this place. Why kill someone when the secret's out already? You don't give up patching a hole in the hole just because a new one opens. Look, it seems I seem to be asking the wrong thing of a wrong person. I'm sorry. This all sounds so monstrous. This is a loose end of mine to solve. Well, I'll look for her, but I will not kill her. Not unless talking with her, shows me that she's an actual danger. I'll find her. Thank you. The matter has haunted me for quite a while. If my stupidity caused the wound to be uncovered, best not to think of it. You have been unlike any other servant of Kairos I've encountered. We are indebted to your patience and reason. One more thing. If you do kill her, be sure to gather her belongings. Very important. That's the only way I can verify that you have found the right sage. It would also... his words falter as he chokes up with a halting smile. It would also mean a great deal to see my old scrolls back, on the off chance she still carries them. It's a petty and vain request, but if you've been robbed before, you probably know the feeling. What else do you want of me? What do you do here as one of the leaders? He shakes his head. I'm the only true leader, as I've said before, but I won't belabor the point. 3 years ago, I stumbled across these old walls, and very quickly I found I wasn't alone. A clutch of hungry and sick Thiersmen had stumbled upon this enclave as well. I had come here to escape Kairos' forces, but I am nothing if not driven by noblesse oblige. I decided I'd weigh anchor for a bit and help out. His staff dips into the pool at his feet, sending ripples across the surface. Water was both the problem and the solution. These refugees were surrounded by it, but couldn't drink it without picking up whatever Old Wolves-induced disease lives within. The withering rot, we call it. What's wrong with the water down here? The streams that run through those old walls have something foul about them. Some suggest that the Bane do their business upstream, and that taints the water. I suspect the problem is less scatological in origin, but likely mystical all the same. Whatever it is, it leads to a fever, seizures, eventually death. I've been able to concoct a remedy if administered in time, and I can mix the solution with water to make it drinkable, but untreated, the water here is death sentence. And these people have willingly accepted your leadership. Did I knock them around first? Is that what you're asking? No, they were survivors of some battle with Cairn, where Cairn brought a keep down on their heads and opened a route to this enclave in process. They were starving, lost, and terrified of the Bane. They came for me to help, since my magic could keep them safe. Times have sure have changed, folks begging a Tidecaster to save them and all. What happens to those with the withering rod? They waste away in an agonizing fashion, that's the short of it. The water here slakes the thirst for a moment. Those poisoned reported feeling dry, no matter how much they drank. They would be pissing and shitting more than you put in, while being desperately thirsty all the time. Your skin shrivels and cracks, and eventually you die, a pathetic, desiccated husk of a person. That's what I found when I first happened upon the wound. A lot of scared, dying folks that weren't long for this world. Nobody was going to right that ship except me, so I stayed, and they lived. To a Tidecaster, those are trivial matters. So long as I am here, making a solution to purify the water, I make life here possible. It is a difficult burden, but I am honored that my talents are put to good use. Tell me about the Tidecasters. We are the students of occulted Jade, Archon of the Tides. She was one of the founding pioneers of the Tiers, and her school has been the longest-running institution of learning in the peninsula. Don't listen to what the sages say. Why didn't you leave with the others? I was one of the few to stay, and why not? This is my home. I don't care about Kairos' war, or the slaughter sport of those Archons, but I also wasn't about to sail west to die of starvation on the high seas. The promised lands are a lie. The ocean goes onward, and maybe you fall off the edge, or wrap around to the east coast of Terratus and land right in Kairos' lap. If I am to die, let it happen in my father's coast and my mother's land. What have you been doing since the school's departure? I spent the first few span dealing with some unfinished business. A half-dozen sages wronged some friends of mine, and I'll admit, vengeance has occupied me for a time. When Kairos' forces came, I decided to stay far from a beaten path. I set out to the mountains to find privacy. This place was serendipity writ large. When others stumbled upon this place, it somehow shifted from hovel to home. I did not expect or ask for the responsibility of caring for these people, but now that I wear it, the mantle is comforting. What did you do in the school before the war? Provost of Antiquities was the official title. My life's work was the curation of the school's past, the relics, the sermons of occulted Jade, the life stories of Tidecaster elders past, that sort of work. My personal interest has always been fluid magics of our school. Most of the school embraces the mighty power of Gravelight. I almost can't blame them. For me, water, mist, ice, and fog have always been more immediate, more real, more worthy of understanding. Why didn't the Tidecasters stay and fight Kairos? If I might be so bold as to answer your question with a question, why do you think that was? Not many folks seem to know the truth, so I'm curious as to what one of Kairos' soldiers believes happened. Well, I think it's a mix between rational self-interest and maybe knowing something, we don't. Because, if they didn't know whether there was land out there, I don't think, because dying on sea, without drinking water is a horrible way to go. Or, in a storm, drowning or whatnot. So I think they maybe knew something we don't. Perhaps the cartographers are wrong. Maybe there's land to the west. That was a lie many were told. None of our explorers ever found land across the ocean, yet Jade told many younger Tidecasters that an archipelago was out there, just waiting for us. The truth is, our Archon lacked the will to resist. Scores of Tidecasters craved war, but lost heart at the notion of facing the enemy without the occulted Jade leading the charge. Enough. I don't want to revel in the cowardice of Tidecasters. I made my decision to stay. I'm not pretending I'm some brave hero, but at least I'm trying to hold onto the little port in the storm. How do you purify the water? It's impossible to convey the intricacies, but suffice it to say that I must infuse the water with gravelight energy. This, combined with trace amounts of alcohol and beastman blood, counteracts the mortifying effects of the old wolf's water. I see that look in your eye. Worry not, the beastmen willingly gift these vital fluids when they can. It's a tiring process, but it produces clean and restorative water. Jaspos's product is an amateur imitation and will never sustain this place in the long run. That's why I've taken Insipid moniker as my apprentice to safeguard the process. And unlike most, she knows just when to stay out of my way. What should I know of Jaspos? His eyes glaze over you when you mention the rival's name. If only that rock pounder would just shut up. He loves the sound of his own voice. He grips the roping on his waist, squeezing with a clenched fist. Unfortunately, his forge is on the upper level, so his soliloquies flow down to ensure my misery. This place has better acoustic than the Academy of the Tides. Lucky me. He thinks that because he can cleanse the water, not as well as I do, mind you, that he can pontificate at all hours of the day. I nearly drowned myself once, rather than to listen to one of his tirades, you know, but I knew the moment my body was discovered, he would be raining another righteous speech about the cowardice down upon my course. That wouldn't do. Look, I'll say it plain. Jaspos has a big mouth, and he talks incessantly about transforming Bastard Wound into something great, but the truth is, he's just out for himself. He slams his staff into the ground, mouth quivering as he speaks. I built this place from nothing, and he thinks he can come in and claim all the hard work that has already been done? Not on my watch. I heard a beast woman here once hold sway. Ah, Reef Talon. Curious case, that one. She poured her way into the caves a year ago with her cubs, a vicious fighter, for certain, bane of the bane, I'd like to say. She took the charge of a tribe, but had a curious way about her, the most fascinating beast I have ever met, oddly pensive, strangely polite, and prone to bathing. Speaks nonsense, cowed and submissive by the sound of it. This Reef Talon sounds like a mewling bulwark, not proper alpha. Bulwark is the second in command of a beast tribe, a beast position often held by the most savage of the beast women. The bulwark's primary responsibility is to enforce order and obedience, and carry out the prima's commands. In smaller stricture of a pack, the bulwark performs the same duties in loyalty to the alpha. Things really got unusual when, after a bloody dust-up with the Bane, the Reef Talon healed some of the members of the patrol with her touch. I can't say heal with a straight face. Those who had their wounds tended felt spectacular for a few days, but by the week's end, a whole new set of maladies overtook them. She was a mystic? She claims she wasn't, but I've never known a beast to downplay her strength. But sure as water's wet, she could mend wounds with a mere touch, so she must have had some training. Having seen her what her healing did, hindsight tells me she would be hesitant to discuss her mystic training. Perhaps trained by fool for a mystic. Why else would Beastwoman hide such strengths? A true mystic wears power proudly, not viper's slither in obsequiousness. What sort of problems happened to those who were healed? It started subtle, really. Folks treated by Reef Talon just slept a little longer each night. At first, claiming that they felt... slept a little less, obviously, because they are sleepers, each night. At first, claiming they just felt too hale and hearty to sit in bed. Later, they would be exhausted from days of spent walking, yet unable to sleep. The old Tidecaster shifted his weight with a sigh. After days of being sleepless, other things would start to go. Tempers, memories. Worst of all, a few of those who could work sigils lost that talent. Imagine spending an afternoon listening to Jaspos droning on about virtues of pulverizing stone. You would be frustrated and exhausted, somewhat murderous in intent, but for some reason you can't sleep. Nothing turns the date. Night turns to day, which turns to night. We took to calling those afflicted the sleepless, and warned others of what became of those cured by Reef Talon. What happened to Reef Talon? A few span back, a patrol of the disfavored were in the mountains, searching for areas struck by Cairn's magic, or so they said. When they stumbled upon our refuge, and being disfavored, were shocked and appalled not just by our squatting in the old walls, but by the beastmen leaving with us. A few even deferred to Red Talon during the parley, and seeking humans looked to a beast woman was rather appalling to those iron thugs. The meeting quickly turned violent. We bested the disfavored, but Reef Talon fled during the altercation. I guess a combination of guilt from warping her fellows with magic, and the feeling of shame that her presence roused the disfavored to attack us. I have no proof, but I think Reef Talon fled to save us from her. There's plenty of folks who hate her, but I, for one, don't think her actions were ever malicious. Protecting this place is all she cares about, and she probably realized she had to go to save us all. Regardless of her specific motivation, I'm sure she fled deeper into the old walls, not topside. Someone claims she dove into the water, another claims she ascended a teleporter. Either way, she hasn't been into the village since the disfavored arrival. If anyone can survive the depths of the old walls alone, it's Reef Talon. That said, she has been gone a while now, and I'm not sure I'd wager money on her survival to date. What happened to the Sleepless? When Reef Talon fled, almost all the Sleepless went with her. Whether they chased her out of anger or fear of being deserted, I don't know. You might find a few here in refuge, but most of them have taken their chances in the depths of the old walls. Eisiv, a woman whose life is already marred by tragedy of wedlock to Jaspos, was the last person to be healed by Reef Talon. She is still cogent. Who knows how that'll last? Poor woman. And the Sleepless grow more detached from reason with each day spent walking. I half imagine most went into the old walls to find death at the talons of the Bane. If I lost the ability to rest, if my magic was taken from me, I would probably do the same. Okay, that's all for now. Good. He closes his eyes and returns to his meditation. Greetings, Fatebinder. I think I speak for all of the Forgebound when I thank you for your graciousness in regard to our little community. We don't normally barter our weapons and armor, but for a personage such as yourself, I'll gladly make an exception. Would you care to browse our works, or was there something else I could help you with? What can you tell me about the wound? I've never expected to be making home in the old walls, that's for certain, but between our efforts and Master Jaspos' guidance, we have built of this place something like a home. If we could find a better solution for the water issue, and nothing against Wagstaff, he has my admiration as a community founder, but being the first settler and being the first among settlers are two totally different things. I think you'd be impressed, Fatebinder. Even with the limited resources available, the Forgebound craft the finest creations in all of Terratus. Yeah, that's indeed pretty... bonus damage for percentages of missing health. Masterwork iron armor, but no, there's no one to wear it though. Is this for free? Sure, I might buy it. No, I won't buy it. Like, I'm
Right.
mostly interested in buying scrolls and stuff, and weapons I'll just keep finding, I assume. Fatebinder, you've returned. Apparently there's nothing to talk about. So what's the point
Can't
of this
do that.
place? Like, what's my actual... bring Lantry to talk to Mel. Yeah, that might be a good idea. I might return when, shuffling my companions a bit. Because obviously, I suppose Ebb would be very interested in talking with another Tidecaster, and apparently Lantry would like to talk to the guy about the other scribe, so I might do that.
Can't do that.
With a despondent sigh, the Forgebound smith unfastens the strap around one of her pauldrons and drops the metal appendage to the floor, exposing a muscular figure. She quickly traces a sigil with her ungloved hand and touches a hammer dangling from her smock, frowning as it stubbornly remains inert and unsympathetic to her magical entreaties. She glances up as you approach. Sorry, Fatebinder, my spellcraft hasn't been cooperative as of late. I take it you're not here to talk about my preoccupations. Anything in particular you would like to discuss? She offers a forced, polite smile, but can't maintain it for more than a moment. What do you do in the forge? I'm Jaspos's apprentice, have been so far for the last few years. She scoops up a small clay pot and spins it between her fingers. Napping wasn't originally my specialty. I apprenticed under Master Erasma back in Latian's Crossing, but a freak accident meant that she would take her secrets of the ceramic arts to the void. Jaspos had just finished work and was returning north for more training with the guild, so I joined him. Long story short, we stumbled upon the wound and stayed, and I took a new trade with Jaspos as my mentor. What happened earlier with the hammer? I was embarrassing myself again. Seems like that's my only reliable talent these days. Her cheeks grow flustered as she looks to the ground. I thought I was competent napper, practically a journeyman in the skill. Lately, even the simplest preparatory spells vex me, like that sorry display you witnessed. She raises her eyes to meet yours. Something about this place hollows me out from the inside. Whatever forge burns inside grows cold. Let's not speak of it anymore. You're becoming one of the sleepless, aren't you? I think I am. Started when I broke my hand under the mallet. A rookie mistake. I asked Reef Talon to heal it, but things have gone sour ever since. Can't sleep, can't summon a sigil to save my life. Worst of all, she lowers her hand down to her stomach, frowning as she thinks better of saying more. I don't know how much time I have left. I just want to enjoy whatever last moments I have with Jaspos. Do you enjoy working for him? I do. Jaspos has introduced me to napping, and it came easier than pottery, my first craft. If we hadn't fallen in love and married, I might have returned to the north and stayed in Kairos' good graces. She slowly nods, as if recalling a long-forgotten memory. I will take my leave.
Sorry, I can't.
The Forgebound apprentice stares intently at the amber hide he holds aloft, pounding its surface methodically with a heavy iron mace. The light from the nearby hearth dances across his eyes. As you draw closer, the pungent odors of tanning agents thickens the air. He turns to you with a stoic expression. Is there a problem? Do you need something? What's your role in the settlement? It's my third year apprenticing to Jaspos. Between that and trying to keep the settlement running, I'm never short on work. He flicks a chunk of animal fat from his belt buckle and glances around the chamber, frowning. Whatever I can do, whenever I can, I slip away to the surface with the woundkin for a good hunt. Caves and hollows aren't meant for the living. I get my materials from the kill, tusks for tools, hide from sturdy clothing. The rest goes to the tents, the cots, and we've never got enough, and we haven't even gotten down to the meat. The woundkin, they understand better than we do. I suppose I'm also a napper. Jaspers has to pass down his art, right? But everyone knows my passion and skill is tanning. How is apprenticing for Jaspers been? Difficult. Don't mistake me, I pledged to follow him, and my loyalty doesn't water, but I damn well wish we have returned north as planned. Instead, I'm stuck in those old walls, surrounded by Bane and branded as a traitor in Kairos' eyes. He scrapes a worn knife against the whetstone dangling from his belt. Jaspers didn't like my interest in leatherworking. I think he saw it as an insult to his craft. If I favored it so much, I should have sought apprenticeship with the master of tanning, right? Well, consider that another thing I plan to do after we returned north. The truth is, people need my skill with hides and pelts far more than my attempts at napping. Every time I clothe or fed someone, and they thank Jaspers, he has less and less to say about it. Now that Argen's apprenticing with him, I think he's content to let me dabble in tanning. I'm unsure as to what the game wants me to do here. Like, I guess there is still this, which I assume is a portal that leads deeper into the old walls. But you know what? I will shuffle my party a bit, and return here. Like, what else do I have to do? Lethian's Crossing. Merchant's Crossroads. And those are the Spires. Okay. Okay, I will return to Lethian's Crossing because I have business there. First, I guess I'll go here because by that time they would have finished the research, right? Wait, what? The work continues. Okay, so I guess they are not done yet. Yeah, they are almost done. My dear Fatebinder, it's a poorly kept secret that Bledenmark's job is more about killing threats before they become a problem. Official executions are really the minority of his duties. As I understand it, Kairos has long used Bledenmark as a preemptive measure. Since he can move about the world rather freely, and he can evade all but the most absurd powers, he is the perfect predator to send against wild talents. I'm sure few in the Terratus have ever actively wondered why there have been seemingly so few Archons born in the far west. I'm sure folks with the potential to be Archons have occurred in the tiers from time to time, but they are usually cut down by Mark before the world hears of them. It's safe to assume that Bledder Mark has his eyes on you and has orders to use his own judgment as to where to strike. I've known the old man for ages, and I would strongly encourage you not to try to appeal to him with overt displays of loyalty. He has no stomach for sycophants. I sincerely believe that he thinks every human being is selfish, twisted knave, and that there are those who are lying about it and those who accept it, and accept who they are, and no third type exists. So yes, I do think that Blood and Mark will one day come for you. As I said, you could always hide or end your life now, but where you're headed, conflict is likely inevitable. Thank you for weighing in all this. To ask perhaps a too obvious of a question, if I am such an anomaly, such a threat, why haven't the Overlord dealt with me right away? An edict or a simple request to Blood and Mark would be no small threat. Neither seems to have happened just yet. What is your take on this? Why hasn't Kairos dealt with me? Shall we bend elements to your will today, Fatebinder? Yes, we will, actually. Actually, we definitely will. Actually, I could hire more people at this point. I have what? 2 slots left here. Control stone. Teaches subterfuge and the use of magic staff. Control fire, control emotions. Control atrophy. I guess I'm using this sometime as well. Although not as much because my staff is frost and most of my offensive spells are frost as well. Sure, let's hire this guy. As for here, always wanted to hire this guy because he's a Fatebinder. I don't know what it means that he will change what skills you are proficient in, but sounds interesting. What else I might need? Parry, dodge, and subterfuge. A one-handed parry athletics. Let's do that. A swindler from the bastard city who is able to acquire valuable items. Sure.
Every day.
Why not?
Right.
Okay, so I wanted to take Lantry and Ebb with me.
So, your latest acquisition has me thinking about the Spires some more. By all accounts, they go as far back as the old walls. Over the centuries, the nobles of the tiers have claimed the Spires, but they've only ever battled over the land at the ground level of the monuments. I've never seen the glyphs of a spire light up in all my years. Not until you show up. If this were an isolated incident, I'd be confused. But it seems the Spires, plural, are somehow connected to you. What's your secret?
Well, I've studied at Tunon's feet, proclaimed edicts, broken them too. I'm sure I've been exposed to all sorts of arcane powers. A long sigh escapes Lantry as he sticks his quill in his mouth, chewing on its tip. His head tilts from one side to the other, muttering inchoate half-words. I always want to know what you're thinking.
My mind is going back to Ascension Hall. I wonder if Gravenash or Narot had claimed it as their own, would the spire come alive for either of them the way it did for you?
The Edict of the Execution was pushing for someone to claim Ascension Hall. Can't be a coincidence.
Ah, such a clever child. I can't imagine the Overlord would ever carelessly word an edict. You are right. I don't imagine Kairos leaves anything to mere coincidence.
Are there stories of awakened spires anywhere else in Terratus?
There are other spires, and I've heard of notable figures trying to build monuments atop or astride the spires. But nothing I've read matches the mystical connection you've made with the spire.
And do you think the spires are connected to Kairos in some fashion?
If you're asking if Kairos built them or controls them, no. They predate all mention of Kairos, and I'm sure if Kairos could control the other spires, that fact would be shamelessly flaunted. But it occurs to me that perhaps Kairos didn't have a connection, but does now, thanks to your actions.
Do you have anything new to say? What do you think about Sirin?
Of course. How can I help?
What do you think about the region we're in?
Lethian was a merchant, fearless one at that. Takes a rare breed of profiteer to risk settling a corner of the old walls. These days, the settlement is bustling. The really displaced war refugees are the reason for the crossing's recent growth. Of course. How can I help? Are you asking for an objective assessment? Or is this your way of saying you want to gossip?
What do you think of Sirin?
As a chronicler of history, I am most honored to have the chance to travel alongside a luminary. I can write down her speech word for word, letter for letter, and proclaim it back, but yet the words lack her charm. This supports my hypothesis that her power manifests by the actual sound of her voice, and less of the particulars the words chosen. Fascinating.
So, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying my words have no weight or significance, and it's simply my magic that makes me powerful. I've got a song for you, Lantry. Do you want to hear it?
What? It's high praise.
What's your read on kills in Shadow?
Aggressive, homicidal, and best kept on a long leash with a longer whip. I'm a poor judge of beasts. I've known so few, and none resemble the scribes and scholars to which I'm accustomed. But there's a blunt honesty to her that I rather enjoy. She wants to bask in your power and makes no excuses for the self-interested nature of her loyalty to you. Such refreshing transparency is rare in humans.
So about Lexime. Lexime? Now where did you hear that name? A young sage named Mel spoke of her. Scribe Mel, that's her assistant. It would mean a great deal if you could speak with this young man. What if Lexime is in danger? Yeah, that's why I came here. You're coming with me.
I can sober up on the road. Ready to go.
Lantry scratches his eyebrow, leaving streaks of sepia ink in his white hair.
Goodbye to you too.
What is it you need? Ask away.
What do you think of Sirin?
We've all heard legends of child archons, but Sirin is the real thing. She's so very jaded for her age. But I'd be a sour ninny shitter too if I had a contraption stuck on my head limiting my greatness. I'll tell you this much. Her hatred of the voices of Narad is either genuine or a most fantastic act. But being a giant liar, I know another liar when I see one. And I'd wager this gripe is sincere.
I'm well aware that she may have already said something to me to make me more comfortable with her presence, and if she did, how would I know if she is influencing me or not? If she is playing me, I applaud how well she's doing it. What's your thoughts on kills in Shadow?
So long as she doesn't perceive you weak enough to challenge, kills in Shadow should prove a fearsome, loyal retainer.
I find it strange. In humans, Kairos' invasion spawned despair, surrender and rage, but the beastmen seem almost indifferent to Kairos and unshaken by the constant state of war the Tears have seen.
And Kills in Shadow adopts this optimism more than any. Seems she has no room to be sad about what the Overlord has destroyed. She seems to care only about what can be carved out of what remains. I'll try to find inspiration in that. Ask away. What is it you need? Smartest thing you've said all day. I'm ready whenever you are.
I will meet you at the Spire.
Channel a burst of energy through your magic staff, dealing damage to all enemies in a cone. So where is it then? Like this skill. Is it this?
Can't
no,
do that.
It's not a cone. I do have reputation abilities that I wasn't using though. Voice of Ages grants Lantry precision hit and the ability to decipher ancient languages, a useful skill for discovering new magic. Now, there are messages in those ancient languages in the old walls near... I have to pause for a second. Okay, I'm back. So, there were like those spots that Lantry could decipher back at the old walls where Retamon was. So perhaps I should return there. Lantry surrounds the target in a bubble of slowed time, slowing interactions and movement speed. And creates a powerful wave that repels foes in a cone. Okay, I'll go down to Lethian's Crossing.
Will do.
I think this episode has been long enough, so I'm going to save here and end it for now. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!